Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And finally, check out our Altar Sleeves. Support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in the store, including a set of exclusive sleeves featuring the Magic Mics crew at AltarSleeves.com/MagicMics. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hi, everybody.
Ruben Bressler.
Good evening. How's it going?
Well, it's a wonderful Monday. We're all having fun as the world slowly kind of gets back
getting close, getting closer and closer.
Little baby steps.
8 days away here in Los Angeles from the official, cutting of the ribbon of mask mandate goes away.
Goodness.
So. Yeah,
we'll see. I wasn't going there. I was just thinking, since we're talking about Modern Horizons, it would be just another modern Monday. Whoa,
sure.
Whoa.
I briefly considered making a Garfield joke, but I didn't. I did not do that.
Potato, it's fine.
Even though I hate Mondays.
We also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our retro top 10 Kaladesh cards. Ruben?
We had a couple of comments that told us we had a bit of a gap in our resume when it came to Kaladesh block. And Spencer Ward is the flag bearer for this particular comment. He writes, "So, guys, let's have a little chat. Let's go back to the release of Amonkhet and the biggest story not being anything in Amonkhet, but instead an emergency banned and restricted announcement days after. A banned and restricted announcement due to the absolute hysteria over a little deck nicknamed Crazy Cat Lady around Saheeli Rai and Elidar Guardian, due to the fact that they basically said by not banning either card, Splinter Twin was too good for Modern, but perfectly fine in Standard."
Well,
first of all, did you say Amonkhet?
Yeah, because they announced it after, because it was the Amonkhet set release when they would have banned cards.
Okay, I got confused. I thought you said Amonkhet, and then when you said Splinter Tit, it was over. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, I mean, the Elidar Sovereign Saheeli Rai combo was effectively Splinter Twin in Standard.
Okay.
We were expecting a ban of one or the other, and then when Amonkhet came out, they were like, nope, you can just keep doing that, I guess.
Okay.
And then they emergency banned it shortly thereafter.
Right. So, for those who don't know, Elidar Guardian is a white and 3 generic mana for a 1/4 uncommon cat beast. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control. Note permanent. Then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Now, if you did that to Saheeli Rai for a red, a blue, and a generic mana, it has 3 loyalty. It's a mythic Planeswalker Saheeli, of course. It has +1 Scry 1. Saheeli Rai deals 1 damage to each opponent. And here we go. -2, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. That token gains haste, exiled at the beginning of the next end step, which means, and -7, search your library for up to 3 artifacts with different names, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle. But really, that second ability plus the Guardian means insta-win, insta-infinite creatures, they're dead. The end.
Yeah. And, because of that word, I mean, we've seen combos like this before, and Wizards had been pretty good about not accidentally printing these in Standard, and then they did it again with Elidar Guardian. I love me a blink effect, and so Elidar Guardian was great already. Then they printed Saheeli Rai, and oops, accidentally the entire format. It's still kind of playable in the formats in which it's legal, even in Modern.
Saheeli also saw a little bit of play in Vintage and Saheeli Oath. You would basically get a Sun Titan. You would use your Oath of Druids trigger to get a Sun Titan. The Sun Titan would bring back Saheeli Rai, and you would just kind of loop your Sun Titans together and make copies of each other, and then you'd have infinite Sun Titans. And so that was a fun thing for like 2 weeks, and I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, so so you have to paint the picture here of, it's Friday. It's the release of Aether Revolt's spoiler. Or no, maybe it was spoiler. I don't know. Maybe the release of
the Image Gallery.
Yeah, the Image Gallery, it was up, and it didn't take long. But I'm recalling this is that there were actual physical copies out in the world, so maybe it was when it was released. But either way, this combo wasn't caught till
Yeah,
Like,
they
No,
caught
it
it
was
very
the
late.
They
It
caught
was
it-
the Image Gallery because I remember I was on the way to an event, which was on a Friday, and so we were in the car, we were road tripping, and I distinctly remember being on my phone in Chris's car and going through the previews and not initially thinking anything of it, and then immediately tabbing into Twitter and seeing because it wasn't previewed.
yes,
the
yes.
Guardian wasn't previewed.
Right, the
This
Guardian
was one
wasn't
of those
previewed at
commons
all.
Yeah, because sometimes there's commons or uncommons that don't really get a preview, and you don't see them until the whole thing goes live. And this was one of those cases where it was last minute, and then people started putting the pieces together, and we're like, "Oh, this is a thing." And then within like a week or two, it was everywhere.
Oh, I mean, we're talking, so like within like maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes after, like
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a hold of the Magic product manager and I'm like, dude, take all the Saheeli Rise out, get him out of the
Right.
way. And he's like, dude, somebody's already came around the Grand Prix and bought every single one at every single booth and they were gone. And that was the best thing you could do for the next 3 weeks. So that was that. And also, I mean, I don't know. It didn't seem to affect too much of what Wizards previews, but it does also seem that Wizards seems to give out all the uncommons and a ton of the commons these days. There's very, very little you don't see beforehand.
Yeah, I think that's also a function of there are more people playing Magic, which means there are more content creators, and the more content creators, it means there's more smaller creators, and everybody wants a card. So usually they dole everything out these days. Usually.
Well, if I remember correctly, this was one of the events that led them to the creation of the play design team. That between this and Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, they were like, okay, we need somebody to like spot this because clearly we're not doing that. And so I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back and led to that team of Melissa and Cheon and Andrew Brown, I think it was, and so on and so forth.
And this was, it always, I don't know, it felt like they always seemed like they had that, but they just called it development. And then later they're like, no, we need like future league developers,
Well,
and then like
yeah.
developers of the newest stuff, and we'll
Right.
work that out.
Development is at least slightly not fully detached.
Right.
But the play design team of people who still have one foot firmly in the real world, I think really helped out, especially with finding combos that were relevant in the older formats.
Well, that's always been the problem with Wizards, and we kind of touched on this during last week's live show, is that, Wizards, people who've been at Wizards for a long time become very insulated from the way that everyday Magic works. They're not really familiar with the cards that people are playing or the top decks or things like that. And so, it's understandable why some of these cards would slip through, because if you don't have your pulse on the finger, or if you don't have your finger on the pulse of the game and the meta games, you don't see the big deal. They didn't even think of Doomsday and Thassa's Oracle. I remember Sam Black's latest article where they wanted to put Doomsday in Modern, and he was like, do you know it goes with Thassa's Oracle? And then they were like, never mind. So they regularly have to bring in this sort of fresh blood to keep that from happening.
Right.
I want
Otherwise,
to,
you're just Dr. Manhattan.
right.
Yeah.
I want to say something like, maybe the Elidar Guardian was changed late, and if there was a separate team, they would have caught it. There was something around that
could
whole
have
time
been,
period,
too.
and the type of permanent that it blinked could have changed or something to just a permanent, which is kind of weird anyway. Either way, that was a crazy time period in Magic, and we do appreciate Spencer Ward for being a part of the show. Please contact us on social media for your prize. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week. Maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, because it's time to talk about Modern Horizons 2. This thing is jacked. Everything's worth like $1 million.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I tried even looking up the Brainstorm today because I wanted it for my Sharoon deck, and it's almost a $4 card, and I was like, why?
Oof. Yeah, it's a lot, and like every mythic, there's like 1 million mythics. There's more mythic variants, or mythic and rare variants, than there are mythics and rares. Like, it's insane. There's 1 million cards in this set. They're all
Many
crazy cool.
archetypes.
Oh my
have
god!
been spawned. If you've been keeping up with the results from this past weekend, there are new archetypes that have been created. Existing archetypes have had new life breathed into them. Cards that didn't see play, that had been kind of relegated to the bulk box, are now hot new items. And so it's really exciting to see what people are doing with this. And they're not done yet. Like, this is one of the best times to be playing Magic, in my opinion, is when a set of this magnitude comes out and just everybody's brewing and nothing's really off the table and everything's possible. And regardless if you have results or not, you have opinions and you have ideas, and it's just a great time right now. Like, I'm just enjoying seeing all of the lists and the things people are doing and what's putting up results and what isn't, and what's expensive and what's not. Like, it's just a fascinating time.
Yeah, I got to watch a little bit of who is Bosch and Roll again?
Brian Kowal.
Kowal, yeah, all right, that was the name I was trying to think of. He has a video cam today. He says, Modern Horizons 2 is busted, Urza Saga, Aether Vial, Affinity. First of all, I'm always shocked every time when I realize, like, Aether Vial is legal in the format, like, even though it's
Brian Kowal.
Brian Kowal, okay.
Kowal.
And I'm always just like, you know, that's legal? And I'm always, every time, it's crazy. But, like, Urza Saga, that card is amazing. Yep. Like, it's great. You can make another construct on the way out, like, as the third thing is, you know, on the stack or whatever, which is fantastic. You can use...
Is it your number 10?
No. I was just like, I'm just noting that...
It might be on one of our lists, is all I'm saying.
Dang it, you're totally right.
We are doing a top 10 show in which we will go through our top 10.
You know, I got carried away talking about content. All right.
Yeah, well.
That said, you know, it could be on my very list.
You gotta wait for the cards to come up on the list.
But the point he's trying to make is valid in that, you know, creators this is a gold mine for creators right now. If you're any sort of a brewer, or if you have a way to, you know, receive deck lists or receive donations and you want to play them, like, there's, you know, a wealth of content to choose from right now.
Well, let's go ahead and start making that content, shall we?
That's right.
I'm not going to be a part of number 10 or number 9 because they're higher on somebody else's list, but that's okay too. Ruben, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is a card that has, you know, it took Legacy by storm when it was first printed, and now that it's in Modern, it's seeing play in a number of archetypes, not the least of which are Living End and Humans, because it's Shardless Agent.
Ooh.
Colorless green-blue 2/2 artifact creature human rogue. Very simple. It has Cascade, which means when you cast the spell, you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. Put the exiled cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. Very powerful card. Being an artifact is relevant. Obviously, being a 2/2 for 3 is good. It is a human, so it is seeing play in humans decks to be able to cascade into things like Thalia's Lieutenant. And of course, Living End and Restore Balance and the other kind of Cascade combo archetypes. Now that you have a blue way to Cascade that is 3 mana, it's just breathing new life into a lot of archetypes.
Yeah, Living End had already been on the radar. Like, people had found a new kind of teamer version of it, and it was fine. I felt like it was still missing some things. I didn't really know what that thing was, but, you know, Shardless Agent definitely smooths out a lot of the kinks of the deck, and so I think Living End really has been cemented as being teamer now, because for a while it was Jund, and now I think we're pretty firmly in teamer. And you can also just play Shardless Bug minus Force of Will in Modern. Shardless Bug was a pillar of Legacy for quite a while, has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit, but, you know, you could pretty much play that, you know, minus Toxic Deluge, I guess, but and minus Sylvan Library. I mean, a lot of, like, the Legacy, I mean, Sylvan Library, Toxic Deluge, and I think that's about it. Oh, and Baleful Strix is out, but I mean, you can do a reasonable impression with, like, Coatl, you know, and then you have this, and so the pieces are there, and so you could do that too if you wanted to. If you're tired of Jund, you can also do just Bug.
I mean, this is a card that is, like, so powerful and impacting. There's sort of these milestone cards around Magic's history where you go, you know, before True Name Nemesis, the game was different in those older formats. And then, you know, after True Name Nemesis, it was different. After Shardless Agent, totally different way of looking at certain decks and archetypes, and that will, like, never change. At this point, this is just a part of the format. You need to deal with it and understand it, and this is bringing up like an absolute wrecking ball, I think, into what Modern is and can be and can look like, and the power level that they're okay with, for example, because, man, this thing is Octane, and that's where we're going in Modern, and I like it. All right. Aaron, what's number 10?
So I'm going to slow things down a little bit. So this was my preview card for this season. I personally, as Aaron, have not had a preview card in about 4 years since Amonkhet. My last preview card was Sacred Cat. And I was recently contacted by my dear friend Adam Staborski, and he said that he wanted to interview me and talk about the history of Dredge, and then it would lead to the reveal of this card. And I'm really excited. I've really just kind of fallen in love with it. I don't know if it's going to see any play, but I think it does have some potential. My number 10 is Magus of the Bridge. So Magus of the Bridge is 3 pips, 3 black pips. It is a creature human wizard with 4 power and 4 toughness. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And when a creature is put into an opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, you exile Magus of the Bridge. So it's basically Bridge from Below on a body that you can pay for and that you can cast, and does not work in the graveyard. And so Goblin Bombardment is in Modern now. There have been these sort of aristocrat decks on the fringe for a while. The pieces are there for a really fair kind of altar deck with Bloodghast, Altar of Dementia. Bridge from Below was a part of that as well, so you could make kind of a fair version of that if you wanted to. There's also been a black-green Yawgmoth deck that's been on the fringes as well that involves killing your own things. And so there have been aristocrat decks in Modern for a while, and maybe this is the thing that, you know, pushes them over the edge. But I just really want to talk about this art, because when the card was given to me and in for this interview, I didn't know what the card looked like. And so I got to see it with everybody else. And Brian Sola just did an amazing job here. You have this bridge that's literally made up of ambulatory zombies that, you know, are just shambling up to this guy and just by instinct, just kind of locking themselves into a bridge. And I just think that's so amazing. And I get chills when I look at this. And so, you know, even if the card doesn't really go anywhere, I think the art has made an impact on me. And it was really nice to see people, you know, put on their brewing hats when they saw this and just, that's my card.
Yeah, Brian Sola, a new artist to Magic, and my goodness, he really crushed it here.
Coming
So
out with
good.
a bang. I mean, yeah, I'm upset that I didn't think of this zombies creating a bridge for someone to walk across when I was telling a story in the Golgari of D&D.
Oh, I've been so sick.
I would have been so much better than just saying, "Oh, there's a bridge."
Right.
The art is incredible, and also, not for nothing, there are decks in Modern that just don't have creatures in them.
Mhm.
So, if nothing else, this could just go into a sideboard and be a threat in like these super black based, maybe a Cabal Coffers deck, maybe a Yawgmoth deck, where your opponent is literally never going to be able to get rid of this with its own ability. It would need to remove it in the traditional manner, which it's a 4/4 for 3, so you're okay with that.
Yeah, can't bolt it, you know, can't do something. Certain ways of removal are not always friendly to it, which is nice.
That's right.
All right, Ruben, what's number 9?
Yeah, and wrathing it is also less than ideal. My number 9 is higher on somebody else's list. I do have 2 hires and 1 same this week.
Ooh, very nice. Aaron, what's number 9?
So my number 9 was our preview card. We also were blessed to receive another preview card from Wizards. And I've said before, you know, 2 of the things that interest me the most are dead things and Enchantress. And Wizards made it very clear that they want Enchantress to be a thing. They felt like Enchantress was missing some tools. And one of the tools they gave them was our number 9, which is Sanctum Weaver. Sanctum Weaver is 1 colorless and a green. It's an enchantment creature dryad with 0 power and 2 toughness. You can tap it and add X mana of any 1 color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. So one of the things that makes Legacy Enchantress what it is Sarah's Sanctum. And so when people were going over the things that Enchantress would need, because we knew pretty early on that they were giving Enchantress new toys, people were going, okay, well, we need Carpet of Flowers, or we need Wild Growths, or we need Sarah's Sanctum. And Sarah's Sanctum's on the reserve list, I believe. So we were never going to get that. But this is huge. And the fact that it is an enchantment itself. So at worst, you're getting at least 1. And the fact that it can be any color. Sarah's Sanctum is just white, and you'll take it. It's not a bad card, but you know, the fact that this can be anything, you know, we've seen blue splashes for Doom, or black splashes for Doomwake Giant. You know, we've seen, I don't think they're legal in Modern, but in Legacy, you have the words cards of like words of wind, words of, yeah. So it's not uncommon to see Enchantress splash a color when they need to. And so this certainly helps you do that along with the Utopia Sprawl effects. And so I've been keeping up with some people who were streaming Enchantress this weekend. And again, that feeling of that's our card, and just seeing our card see play is just always a good feeling.
Yeah, Sarah's Sanctum currently $340. So
That's it? I thought it'd be more.
I know, right?
Honestly.
That's all these days.
Yeah.
God help
our
us all.
girl is currently going for about 10. So
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's no surprise. I mean, this is the first enchantment creature with a tap ability. So to be able to, you know, trigger off of Enchantress effect, get you additional mana, get that any color of mana. I mean, it's gonna go in your Muldrotha deck, I assume. It's because it's multiple types, right? So you get to play your enchantment from your graveyard. It's just good in a number of ways. You know, you compare this to Utopia Tree back in the day, and you're like, oh, I don't think that's going to make the cut anymore. Now you've got this, and it's just spectacular. Muted.
Thank you. This is hyper-driven to go into those decks just the right sort of cost, and just that triggers all the things and makes more mana for yourself, any color, which is awesome. Like, it could have just been Sarah's Sanctum mana, you know, taps for white, and we'd be like, okay, cool. Like, whatever. We got the effect. That's what we wanted. That's awesome.
But now we get to play Starfield of Nyx decks in Modern, and I think that's really cool. That's
very exciting. Let's move on here to number 8. Ruben, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is a card that has been around for a little while. not really doesn't really see a ton of play anywhere, except for in Commander, where it is a Commander All-Star. It appears every once in a while in like Nick Fit decks, but then again, what doesn't show up in Nick Fit? You know what I mean?
It's true.
But it is very exciting to see Titania, Protector of Argoth, in this set.
This was actually my first preview card. I got this when I was doing the deck tease.
Hey, there you go.
Fun fact. Yep. I'll go back in the vaults.
Goodness.
I've actually, as Ruben, I've never gotten a preview card just for myself. It's always been as a part of a podcast. So someday we'll see, or as a part of a D&D show also. But anyway, Titania, Protector of Argoth, is a legendary creature elemental. She is a 3 colorless, green, 5/3 mythic. When Titania, Protector of Argoth, enters the battlefield, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. When a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, make a 5/3 green elemental creature token. So, fetch lands, right? That's what we're doing here. We're playing our 5th land. It's a fetch land. We're using it. We're gonna play our Titania, bring back our Verdant Catacombs, sacrifice our Verdant Catacombs, make a 5/3, go get another land, go. Right? So it's a huge amount of power.
Well, I mean, there have been land decks in Modern for a while. Amulet of Vigor is still very much a thing, even after the banning of Summer Bloom. The Dryad of the Dryad from Theros Beyond Death, that also has made people play these sort of Azusa, landfall ramp decks, and so those are very much a thing in Modern. This allows them to kind of go lower if they want to, or if they want to go in a different direction, or if Scape Shift. It's not unusual for combo decks to board into creatures to kind of psych you out, and so I've seen people kind of floating this in those sort of green-white Reclaimer ramp decks. And so as long as, green land decks are a thing in Modern, I think there's possibly a home for her.
Yeah, the Dryad of the Elysian Grove is still
everybody's running that card. Yep,
that card's
it's that Valakut go. Like, that's all they want to be doing right now.
Sure.
Like,
that, yep.
Have you ever lost to a Farseek? It's the worst feeling in the world. Like, your Farseeks turn into lightning bolts. It's stupid.
That's great.
Titania herself, and like the variant version of this card is absolutely amazing. Foil $75, like absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's going to be the whole set. So,
I mean, that's certainly what it looks like. Aaron, what's your number 10? Or I'm sorry, your number 8.
So a while back, Gavin acknowledged the feedback that he had been receiving that white in Commander really needed some help. And specifically, white card draw has not really been very good. We're having to use things like Endless Atlas or Mind's Eye, which are just not very good compared to what other colors are doing. And he had promised the community that some answers were coming, that help was coming, and that they were trying to find a solution to this. And we got Secret Rendezvous in Commander 2021, and it's fine. It's a good start. My boyfriend loves Secret Rendezvous. We can get to that later, or get to that on the pre-show. But this is another step towards making white good in Commander, or giving white good card draw in Commander, and it's already proven to be a big hit. My number 8 is Esper Sentinel. So Esper Sentinel is 1 white. It's an artifact creature, human soldier, because humans needed more toys.
Oh my God.
With 1 power and 1 toughness. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. So you now get to be Ristic Studies guy of like, are you going to pay the X? Are you going to pay the X? The fact that this the power and toughness can go up. So the bigger this thing gets, your opponents have to pay more, and eventually they're not going to be able to pay that. And so the fact that it's an artifact and a human and a soldier really opens it up to more decks finding room for it. There's been talk of this even seeing play in just Death and Taxes, or just giving Death and Taxes card advantage. Death and Taxes also likes to deny you mana, and so you're not gonna be able to pay this on top of paying for your Thalias. No way. The card is currently pre-ordering for about $25-$30, and so this is a very, very good card, and I just think everybody's gonna want it.
It's got so many wonderful words on it, like drawing cards, paying mana, it's a human, it's an artifact creature too. Like,
and it does that white kind of Punisher thing, but also but it works better in white for some reason.
Right.
When you have Smothering Tithe, the new one from this set that has that lets you investigate, Monologue Tax, all of that, I just love it.
Yeah, that's the taxing. This is like the taxing done right, is the way I would put
Yeah.
it. It feels right. It's just like the right amount of sort of like that push squeeze of resources versus cards to them, and it's super low price as a 1 mana 1/1. And you know, when it's good and constructed and good in Commander, it's going to be expensive. That's how it works. So for my number 8 here, this is a card that we talked a little bit about during the preview season because, like, wow, this card is ridiculous. Do you know that Goblin Ruin Blaster is a shaman? Like,
Hey,
Harmonic Prodigy is an amazing
Creature type.
magic card. Oh my god, it's a red and generic mana for a 1/3, not a 1/2 or a 2/2. No, 1/3. Gets rid of the shocks. It's a rare human wizard with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. And let me tell you, there are a million different cool, weird little combos that you could run with this thing, such as the Archmage Emeritus would start, drawing you 2 cards. Stormkilling Artist will make 2 treasures. Like, I mean, it starts to get really nutty with some of the older, the Goblin Ruin Blaster thing, which is nuts. There's some cool combos that you can say, well, I didn't realize that was a wizard trigger or that was a shaman trigger, and it is. And stuff like Burgi triggers. No, Burgi doesn't trigger twice. I was reading the EDH Rec stuff here. But yeah, the creatures you can use with it, like Gutter Snipe, which is cool, Dockside Extortionist, which is fun.
No.
Those are great.
I mean, Puppeteer Click, Cast Dissonant Mage, like, Hole Breacher, for God's sake, Goblin Electromancer. You can do all sorts of weird, silly, crazy stuff that if things trigger, you want to trigger it again. Harmonic Prodigy is for you.
Pre-ordering for about
I love
$5 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love the art. My favorite scene from one of my favorite movies, which is Kung Fu Hustle, is the fight scene with the musicians. And that's what this reminds me of. And yeah, I think it's a really cool card.
Yeah, this card is sweet and just going to make a lot of weird interactions you weren't prepared for. And I love cards like that.
Especially shamans. Shamans haven't had a ton of tribal help since Shadowmoor, I want to say. And so being able to do things with, Goblin Ruin Blaster, that's kind of cool.
And like
and
Young Pyromancer
totally
makes 2
different.
tokens,
Oh, no.
Right.
Like, stuff adds up. It doesn't take long for you. Like, man, 2 triggers at a time. That's good. That's extra. I like that. Let's move on here to number 7. Ruben, what you got?
I mean, everything in this set is so cool.
It is cool.
But I'm just a sucker for swords, like the Swords of Blank and Blank, and we got a new one in this set, and it's called Sword of Hearth and Home.
Oh.
And that name just makes me feel good. It's like, I like the swords that are, so Fire and Ice is the go-to in terms of a name, right? Like Feast and Famine, okay, I get it, that's fine. Light and Shadow, those are opposites, I get it, it's okay.
It's fine.
Hearth and Home just makes me feel good when I say it. It's a 3 colorless artifact equipment that equips for 2, and the equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from 2 colors because it's a Sword of Blank and Blank. The 2 colors that it has protection from are green and white. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target creature you own. Then search your library for a basic land card. Put both cards onto the battlefield under your control, then shuffle. I also really like how they templated this card, because that's weird. Like, it doesn't read like a blink effect the first time you read it, but it is. And it also gets you an untapped land. This is another Sword of the Animist for Commander. Yeah, it's just a really fun, really good card.
I'm a huge fan of all the sort of X and Ys. Like, ever since Fire and Ice, I've just been a huge fanboy of these things. And like, Wizards kind of knows. Wizards is very aware that the rate is too good. You shouldn't get the rate of the +2/+2 and all the protection and the super cool abilities that fire off with just this one card. But that doesn't matter. That's what makes them sweet. I can't. Is it just me? Or can I not unsee that the sword looks a little lopsided in the special variant version? Like, it looks like they wanted it like turned, but then they decided not to have it turned. But then one of the
Let me take a look.
the little
at the special
was it the
variant
what's the part here above the sword, the hilt, I believe it is. I feel like
Yeah.
the hilt is a little too much on one side and I can't unsee it. But I love this card, and I mean, it doesn't matter. The extended art foil is $140 because that's what swords do. They're crazy awesome, and you love them, and I love them, and they're great. So that's just me. Aaron, what's your number 7?
So we also knew that Reanimator was going to be getting some toys and that Wizards wanted to support that archetype, but we didn't really know what the reanimation spell du jour was going to look like. We had the Fellrights lady that was previewed, and I was like, well, that's cute, but I'm still not paying 2, hoping to God she doesn't die, and then paying 5 again. Like, that's a lot of work. I'm not doing that. Right. And we had a feeling what direction they were going to go in because we saw Unmarked Grave, which was like an entomb for non-legendary. And so it was like, okay, they want us to be reanimating, but they don't want us reanimating legends. Got it. So we still didn't know what the reanimation spell was going to look like. And then later on in the preview season, we got it, and I thought it was fabulous and lovely. My number 7 is Persist. So Persist is 1 colorless and a black. It's a sorcery. It's very simple. It just says return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it, similar to the ability of Persist. And the card is fine, and the card is lovely. I do think it's interesting that Sam Black, in his article, was very concerned about Reanimator. He felt like it might have been pushed a little too much, and I haven't quite seen it yet. Like, I was really having to scrounge for some deck lists this weekend, and so I think people might be too focused on other cards, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I'm really excited to see what happens when people do turn their attention to this, because it's clear that they do want this to be a thing. I just hope that the metagame and you know, the Brewers sort of allow that, I guess.
Yeah.
This was my number 9. I love Persist. I think it's a sort of a perfect Reanimator spell for the format, in that it's clearly going to be good. They gave it a good target as a mythic, we might talk about, but either way, the idea that it mirrors the Persist ability, which is fantastic. And, you know, like and as we know, Aaron, it's pretty easy to hate on the graveyard. They gave lots of tools, cost 0 into the battlefield for if they're in their open hand, blah blah blah. Plenty of ways to mess with graveyards. So it feels like much like Legacy Reanimator, which is it doesn't come up that often, but it like comes out of left field and does great, and then like has to run back and hide before everybody hates it out of the format.
There are a number of archetypes that are like that, where the best time to play it is the worst time to play it.
Yeah.
They win a tournament every 8 months, and there's about 6 decks that are like that. And I hope that Reanimator becomes one of them. And the other thing that they did with Reanimator, with this set in particular, with Unmarked Grave and Persist, is it's going to look way different than the Legacy Reanimator decks, because it's got that non-legendary clause. And I think that that's really interesting and makes the deck feel different and feel good and feel unique. And I love that they did that.
Well, if you want a fun and unique and a crazy experience that Wizards can provide you, that only Wizards can provide you, is to use the mechanic that is so ridiculous. They named the ridiculous scale after it, and then gave you a mythic that somehow works perfect for it. I haven't heard much yet, and we're talking like, what, 1 weekend worth of results or whatever. But Throsta Tempest Roar is a real magic card that is scary as hell. This card is a 10 mana and 10 generic mana, so 12 total. 2 green, 10 generic for a 7/7 mythic legendary dinosaur. This spell costs 3 less to cast for each other spell cast this turn. It has trample and haste and trample over planeswalkers. Yes! It means exactly what you think it means. Throsta Tempest Roar has hexproof as long as it enters the battlefield this turn. So this card is great. I honest to God, I was not ready for Wizards to lean in on Storm as the archetype they wanted to push as one of the parts of the set. It's crazy.
Yeah. And to be clear, and I saw this a lot when the preview season was happening, so I just want to clarify, the Storm scale is really only in regards to Standard. The Storm scale is saying this is the likelihood that these cards will be printed in Standard. And so I saw a lot of people that kept referencing the Storm scale, and I'm like, why is this happening? Because it's not Standard. This is a, straight to Modern, straight to every format set. And so I do find it interesting that Storm got about 3 new cards and Dredge got Shenanigans. So I did think that was interesting.
Lot. They gave Storm a ton.
They did.
Not just Storm cards.
Oh, yeah.
But,
But I do like this, though. This is a fresh take on Storm. It's not Izzet like we're used to seeing. It doesn't have the black, which we're used to seeing. This is really, really exciting. And also, Rotting Regisaur, as many people have pointed out, is the dead version of this. And so, if you want to know what happened to Old Girl, where she does get a new life as a dead dinosaur zombie, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, we're watching all that lightning hit, and then that's, well, what happens?
This is a really good application of the lessons that they've learned on Storm, which is you want to have Storm cards that you play 4 cards before them, and then it's good.
Right.
you don't want to have 30 cards end the game, right?
Right.
And Thrasta, after your 4th other spell, it doesn't get better, right? So it starts at 12, then it cuts down by 3, and then it cuts down by 1, and then suddenly it's 2 mana, which is great. That's exactly what you want out of your Storm decks, I think. And it's a really interesting, new, unique take on that. You got support for this, red-green style of Storm deck in Goblin and Necromancer and Ignoble Hierarch. You can play that alongside your, Empty the Warrens or whatever, and have a very interesting, new, different kind of deck with the Storm mechanic than we've ever really seen before.
I mean, that magical last sentence that gives it hexproof as long as it enters the battlefield this turn, which means you're going to get to do your thing. That's awesome too. It's like you did the work. Like they didn't make it uncounterable. All right, that's the only thing they gave your opponent was they could counter it. Otherwise, you're going to get to do your thing. You get to kill that planeswalker, crush over them, smash for 7, do whatever you want because Thrust is coming.
Yeah. Only reason it's not uncounterable is because they ran out of room in the text box.
Yeah, seriously. Trample over planeswalkers though is just.
That's a great combo of words.
I want to see that more often. Thank you. Let's move on here to number 6. Aaron, what's your number 6?
So I've never really admitted this publicly, but I do have a weird fascination with standstill decks. It's not something I normally thought I'd be into. Like, I'm not really a blue player. I'm not really a control player, but there's something about a good standstill deck that just hits me where I live. And so I'm really excited for this card. I'm hoping that some of the standstill experts try this out because I would very much like to play this. My number 6 is Timeless Dragon. So Timeless Dragon is 3 colorless and 2 white. It's a creature dragon with 5 power, 5 toughness, and flying. It also has plane cycling for 2 colorless, which means that you can discard this, search your library for a planes card. It does not have to be a planes. Basic planes. It can be a duel with planes on it. You put it in your hand and shuffle, and it also has Eternalize of 2 colorless and 2 white, which means that you exile this from your graveyard, and you create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie dragon with no mana cost, and you do this as a sorcery. So this is a fresh take on Eternal Dragon, which also has a plane cycling ability, but it just comes back to your hand from the graveyard. It doesn't come to the battlefield. And so one of the reasons I think this is so appealing for Standstill is that Standstill doesn't want to be casting its spells. Eternalize is not a cast. So if you just plane cycle this on turn 2 or turn 3 after you've dropped your Standstill, you're making your land drops, and then you just have this 4/4 beater that your opponents don't want to do anything about because that'll break the Standstill. And so I think this could lead to some really interesting games. I think this could give Standstill another way to close out games as well. In the past, we've had to run things like Sacred Cat, which, while it's my preview card, it takes a long time to get there with the Sacred Cat. And so I think this is really, really exciting, and I'm anxious to see what people are able to do with this.
This is one of those mixtures of the keywords that just looks so right. Like it powers you up to that 4th mana. It doesn't trigger, so you can play at these cool decks that want you to, not play spells or play around things, and so you don't have to play spells. Like, I love that stuff. It calls back to an awesome creature from back in the day. Like, there's so many checkboxes on this card. It's fantastic. Like
Eternal Dragon and Eternal Witness getting Eternalize versions. This whole set is nothing but memes and callbacks and references
and jokes and
homages and but they did it so well, particularly with this card.
Yeah, this is one of those, like, they knew, like, there's a fan service that is, kind of perfunctory. There's fan service that doesn't go kind of deep enough, but, like, they go all the way in Modern Horizons 2, and this is a fantastic example of them doing that.
Absolutely.
All right, Ruben, what's number 6?
I love me a Replenish, and I love Open the Vaults. I love Second Sunrise, even though it's, a problem. I love all that. I love Starfield of Nyx. We didn't really have, we have Open the Vaults, but that's 6. That's a lot. 6 is a lot of mana. Faith's Reward is a lot of mana, and you have to jump through hoops. I just want Replenish. And they kind of gave us Replenish in the form of Resurgent Belief. Which is nice. Resurgent Belief is it has a mana cost of null. It does not have a mana cost. But it does have Suspend 2 of a colorless and a white, which means that rather than cast it, you can pay that and exile it with 2 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a time counter. When the last one's removed, you can cast it without paying its mana cost. And return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So we do kind of get a Replenish. We kind of get to do the thing. And the list that I've seen with Resurgent Belief so far is a Storm deck, which is kind of funny, where you're trying to put Omniscience into your graveyard, either by discarding it or putting it there with Unmarked Grave, and then you Electro Dominance your Resurgent Belief, and then go to town. Which is hilarious and weird, and I don't know if it's good, but that's where I've seen it first. I love Replenish. I think it's a great effect to have in Modern. I think it's the perfect rare to call back to for the white version of this cycle. I think it's awesome.
This card was just fantastically sweet. This is like one of the spells that I felt is okay suspending. If you just suspend it and you're doing some stuff and some shenanigans, and, you know, we're going to do some cool stuff later. You can still do like cool Enchantress stuff in the meantime, or they get rid of all of your stuff and you get to get it all back, which is also fun. But I could definitely see how they just go, you know, straight to Omniscience and do not pass go. And what's the stupidest thing we can cheat to play?
I think there's 4 Omniscience and 1,000-Year Storm in that deck. Wow. And they're just like, put it in the graveyard and hope for the best. I hope that there is more of a mid-range Replenish deck like I remember having, that, you know, uses Sanctum Weaver and, you know, Starfield of Nyx, that I can feel that Urza's Destiny flavor a little bit more, but we'll see.
Well, you know, in response to that card, in response to it took 27 years to outclass Wrath of God, I say, damn! I say, damn! Damn! Be like, damn, how'd you get fired on your day off? Damn is 2 black for a rare sorcery that says destroy target creature. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated. It has overload of 2 white and 2 generic mana, which means you may cast this spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each, meaning it destroys each creature and they can't be regenerated, aka Wrath of God. They made a better Wrath of God that can be hit with Inquisition of Kozilek, but that's the only thing you can say about it. Okay.
It's the only downside.
That's it.
The downside is that you can also play it on turn 2.
Yeah, that's the downside. Oh no. I mean, it gets hit by Spell Snare? Like, okay, like, you got me?
The best Wrath. It is the best Wrath ever printed, right? This is better. This
is the best Wrath ever printed. Early good, early late, better than the original spell. You got
unconditional.
There.
Yep.
Absolutely. This is, you know, look, if it took 27 years to bypass the alpha card, like, think we're doing okay on rate. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, we get it, you know? It's just it's a thing.
And Wraths have had a lot of trouble seeing main deck play in Modern because it's a turn 4 format a lot of the time. And so if you're on the draw, it doesn't become relevant. This theoretically can still be relevant. You can still get rid of a Thalia's Lieutenant on turn 2, or a Meddling Mage, or, you know, some sort of weird 3-drop that your opponent has. And then also it's a Wrath.
Well, I think it's less about the format being fast and more about the fact that Modern is ridiculously diverse. Like, it's one of the reasons why a lot of the pros don't like Modern, is because it's almost impossible to test for, is that, you know, there is a general metagame. If you got your Jund, you got your Tron, but you're also likely to just face taking turns, and you're also likely to face 5-color Death Shadow. And, you know, Modern is one of those formats where when I like to tell people, when I describe Modern, I describe it as a format where you have to ask yourself what you're comfortable losing to, because it's just such a wide open format. And I think that's one of the reasons why Control struggled for a long time, was that you can't be prepared for everything. And Modern is a format where you're going to face everything. And so Modern in particular, I think, is really a bad format to kind of have main deck board wipes, or to have too many of them, because otherwise you face Tron, or otherwise you face, you know, taking turns, or you do face Skred, or you do face Enduring Ideal. And so, you know, you have to try to have these sort of catch-all answers for this wide format. Otherwise you get pigeonholed and you just die.
I mean, diversity it just becomes the name of the game, I think, for the format, and that, you know, these decks are going to be expensive generally. You're going to pick what you want to play, what you're comfortable with, and giving them that little bit of juice to the control decks is nice too. Card is fantastic. Let's move on here to number 5. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 is the last hire that's on somebody else's list.
Okay, then, Aaron, what's your number 5?
So I don't know if you know this, but when I was keeping up with the results this past weekend, Affinity won the Legacy Challenge.
Legacy
the
Challenge.
Legacy Challenge on Saturday, featuring Stonecoil Serpent, Walking Ballista, Esper Sentinel, Arcbound Ravager, and artifact decks have been a thing in Legacy for a while, based around Mystic Forge, Karn. You're running all the opals, you're running all of the all of that nonsense, and you basically play this really obnoxious game with Emery. Sometimes you run Echo of Eons if you're feeling really frisky, but Affinity did win the Legacy Challenge, and one of the cards that made a splash is my number 5. We're on 5, right?
We're on 5.
Which is Thought Monitor. So Thought Monitor is 6 colorless and a blue, but you're probably never paying that, for an artifact creature construct that's 2 power and 2 toughness with affinity for artifacts, with flying, and when it ETBs, you draw 2 cards. And so, when you look at the affinity, and this is actual affinity. This isn't like Modern, where it's like a modular deck. No, this is actual affinity. And so, when you look at the critical mass of artifacts that are in this deck, it is not difficult to pay as little as 1 blue for this thing. And so, the nice thing about Affinity is it's not like Improvise that you have to tap the artifacts. Just having them reduces the cost. And we've talked before about how, cost reduction mechanics, free spells can be really, really dangerous. And, I think this is fine. Like, I don't think this is game breaking or anything, but, this definitely did give card advantage to a deck that typically doesn't have it, or they have to jump through some hoops to get it. And it's a creature as well. And so I think this is really, really nifty. It plays really well with Emery in that you can just recast it. You're probably not paying full price for it. It does have flying, so it can block the Delvers if they need to. I think this is a really, really exciting card. I would definitely like to get a copy for my Shroom deck, but I think this card is neat.
Like, I think this showcases a few things. One, Affinity for artifacts is busted. It just is busted. Like, I'm sorry, it's busted. Cost reduced mechanics, and that one's like the redhead stepchild, certainly. But it also shows that Thoughtcast was way too cheap. Like a blue and 4 versus a blue and 6, and this thing fuels itself. Extra copies fuel extra copies. With Springleaf Drums, you can just keep playing them. And I saw this thing in action, and it was ridiculous. So
very similar to Sanctum Weaver in that way, in that they put the artifact type on the Thoughtcast,
right,
and that powers up just barely enough.
Right. So imagine this being a Thoughtcast that cost 1 more instead of costing 2 more, because it itself makes it itself cheaper. And it's ridiculous.
This was in fact my number 9.
Nice.
And it was also played alongside that Affinity deck in particular. I think that there are 6 cards from Modern Horizons 2 that are in that deck. Let me count.
So Esper Sentinel,
Urza Saga, Esper Sentinel, Zabaz, the Glimmer Wasp.
Oh, wow.
Nettle Cyst, Thought Monitor, and I guess that's
5.
5.
That's incredible.
It's still a ton. Like a full third of the deck is brand new to Legacy.
Right, because not only was Thought Monitor a fantastic addition to that deck, my number 5 is Urza's Saga, that we spoke a little bit about earlier, about an Affinity deck that was busted.
Nice
you were just cutting yourself out.
Just cutting myself totally. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, the point is that this card was, like, this is one of those cards that is so weird. I just can't imagine you understand how good it is until you see it. You know what I mean? And boy, it didn't take long watching Brian Koval's stream before I saw it, and or his YouTube video, and I was like, my God, you can create the construct twice because the last ability goes on the stack before it dies. You get the mana, which for colorless and something dying in Affinity, you don't really care. You have a whole toolbox of stuff you can get for 0s and 1s, RIP Mox Opal. But like, this card is the realest of the dealest, and making giant artifact creatures really cheap, really quickly, and a deck that's made to just plop them all on the board. Oh my word. Urza Saga was great. It's good early, it's good late. I was a fan from the get-go. This card's amazing. Urza Saga, let me say what it does. Urza Saga is a saga. Is it in fact Enchantment Land Urza's Saga? And there's a whole reason for that. I won't go into it. The point is, it's very clever. Anyway, the first chapter, it says it gains add 1 colorless. That's Wingding or mana right there. The second chapter, it says it gains 2 generic mana tap : create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with, quote, this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. And the third chapter, search your library for an artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1. Remember, it needs the 0 or 1 in the top right corner. No mana cost doesn't count. Like, it needs a 0 or 1. And you put it on the battlefield, and then you shuffle. And that's a hell of a magic card. I can't Remember they wanted to make the third chapter it taps for 3, or you add 3 colorless mana.
The version that's hanging on Aaron Forsyth's wall was chapter 1 add a colorless, chapter 2 add a colorless, chapter 3 add 3 colorless.
Yeah,
which was weird. I like this a lot better. Because it is more flavorful to the story of Urza. It is a callback to Urza's Saga, the set and the block, in that it is an enchantment, but it makes artifacts, and the artifact part of it is what's busted, which is a cute in-joke part of it. I just think it's a great card. It's a really interesting play on what they can do with Magic cards.
Like, this was the sequence. It was Urza's Saga, tap, Springleaf Drum, Ornithopter, tap both, Aether Vial, go. And next turn, make the construct, the turn after make another construct, go search up whatever you want. Going to search up Hex Parasite to actually keep taking the counters off of Urza's Saga to just keep it around as a construct maker was just absolutely insane. This whole thing, this is just a crazy ass card that makes no real sense, and I love it. And this is as crazy as they get.
And it's all over the place now, too. It's just a really good value land.
It really is. Let's move on here to number 4. Aaron, what's number 4?
So my number 4, I will never forget the discussion surrounding this card and the frustration and the fear and the discourse. And it's still early, but so far it doesn't appear that this card is really living up to its reputation. But I'm still not looking forward to having to deal with it. My number 4 is Void Mirror. So Void Mirror is 2 colorless. It's an artifact. It says whenever a player, including yourself, casts a spell, if no colored mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. And so clearly this is a screw you to Tron, Eldrazi Tron, any sort of free spells like Force of Negation, Force of Will, Force of Vigor, cards that you're not really paying for, you have to pay for them, and specifically to put colored mana into them. And so there was a lot of discourse about this, specifically when it comes to Commander, as to whether or not this was in the spirit of Commander. People were theorizing about its impact on multiple formats, specifically older formats. People were worried about what this would do to Shops and Dredge and Vintage, because, we don't play lands that make mana in Dredge, and so we can't afford this at all. And so if you also just land this against Shops doesn't have any Moxen out, they're just not able to cast anything. And so there was a lot of discussion about the impact of this, why cards like this are being designed, but I haven't really heard anything. I haven't really heard anything about people being kept out of games because of this. I haven't really heard anything about it ending games prematurely. I'm certainly not seeing a lot of screenshots of it. I'm not seeing a lot of it being mentioned in Discord. So it does seem to be business as usual. I know a couple people who've tried it and didn't really care for it. So I think it was all kind of blown out of proportion at this time. But I'm anxious to see if that changes at all, because this has the ability to be pretty unfun to play against.
Magic players blowing stuff out of proportion?
No.
That's crazy. That never happens. There's a 2-mana artifact, rudest text you can imagine. Arguably is a fine Magic card, whatever that happens to be.
I mean, but it is on the scale of power of things like Null Rod, of other 2-mana hate cards.
Right.
The thing of this being a bad top deck is a huge deal. Obviously, you need to get this down on turn 2 or turn 1 as soon as you possibly can for it to be relevant. And it is going to shut down a lot of games. That is the thing that it's going to do. That's what it was designed to do. But you're right. It was mostly wind and no fury when it came to this thing being totally busted.
Right. This is one of those cards you need to be aware exists, right? You need to know it exists. If it's going to completely shut down your deck, you need to have a plan for it. Maybe you won't ever see it, but you need to have a plan for it, because this is, you don't ever want to see a card where your deck literally does nothing and dies if they get to resolve it. That's bad. So you should plan around that. And that's how metagames work. So,
and it's great.
Yeah.
Which means it's a good card.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
And again, you draw multiples of it. It's terrible, right? So you don't want
that too.
Yeah. So you want this, that to me is a great hate card, not great in multiples. Stops what you want to stop. Looks really dangerous. Ends up kind of innocuous. And those are fantastic. All right. Ruben, what's number 4?
I'm this is just a love letter of all of the cards that I've loved over the course of my life. One of my formative life decks is the Daniel Zink winning Worlds 2003 Berlin deck, Wake. And they put Mirari's Wake into Modern, and I'm so happy.
They did.
Yeah.
Because I love,
It's an amazing
I love
card.
Mirari's Way. It's originally from Judgment. It's 3 colorless white-green for an enchantment. It has 2 abilities. Creatures you control get +1/+1. And whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. This is obviously an extremely potent and powerful card in the Magic Arena Cube and in Commander, because it's like exactly the kind of thing you want in those kind of mess around and find out formats. I hope that it can get there in Modern. I don't have hope that it will. But that deck, that Wake deck, it was a Bant, or at the time just green, white, blue. It had Deep Analysis, it had Moment's Peace, it had Compulsion. You would Cunning Wish and then copy it with Mirari so that you could Cunning Wish for your Cunning Wish back, and then you'd kill them either with just whatever you had. Elephant Ambush, I think, was the card that I was killing people with when I was playing the deck. Yeah, it's just
Tell him, Grandpa. Tell him what your mana doublers did back in the day. Tell
Right.
him they weren't
and
planeswalkers that made 3/3s. You know?
And then also
Sure.
Decree of Justice would does all the things you want with Mirari's Wake.
I think what you now describe in the Magic world as 5 mana, it does nothing when it enters the battlefield. You go,
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I want it to be true. I think Ruben and I, we want it to be true. It's not going to be true. It's a wonderful
Probably not.
reprint.
There
It's a
are
great
enough
card.
free spells now that you might be able to get away with it with Pact of Negation, Force of Negation, some other chicanery. Maybe. Probably not.
I was dying tapping out for this in the Arena Cube. Like, I would get to my 5th turn, I would play it, and then I would die. And I would be like, but I was going to untap and do all this cool stuff. You're dead already. You're dead already. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Well, look, my number 4 here is this is just one of those cards that you hear rumored and you're like, yeah, they ain't going to do that. It's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. How is it even going to work in the rules? In fact, because of the way people expected it to work in the rules, they had to change the rules so that you could make this crazy, weird card your commander, also known as Grist, the Hunger Tide. Grist the Hunger Tide is a black, green, and a generic mana for a legendary planeswalker Grist. It's a mythic, of course, but here it has this magical text. As long as Grist of the Hunger Tide isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. And of course, this went nuts on Moto and required multiple bug fixes. +1, it creates a 1/1 black and green insect creature token. Then mill a card. If an insect card was milled this way, put a loyalty counter on Grist and repeat this process. -2, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Or for -5, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. If only for weirdness, cleverness, just an oddity. This is one of those weird cards that's going to be a trivia answer till the end of time. What card is a thing but is also a thing but is not that thing? It's damn near a riddle on a Magic card. This card is sweet.
It's a very strange card.
$42, Jesus.
Sure. Well, the reason why it's relevant in Modern is for Collected Company, and it's a planeswalker you could put into play with Collected Company.
You can also unearth it too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I love that they haven't even really it was very shoot first, ask questions later, where they were like, you can play it as a commander, but we haven't quite figured out how yet. So just don't ask, don't think about it, just do it. And
It just works, whatever.
I think it's really cool. The idea of, I don't think we have a proper backstory for Grist yet, but just the idea that you have this walking pile of maggots that's piloted by maybe an important maggot in the head and the skull. And there's just a lot going on here. And so this is very wild. I love this. I've seen people brewing with it. I'm anxious to see if this makes the cut. This is, for as much as we like to kind of rib on planeswalkers for, their impact on the game and maybe it being a negative impact on the game, they do keep finding new clever space to play in. And this is definitely one of the most, I didn't know where we could go after a parasite that was a person in a tree, with Ren and 6. And now here we are with sentient collective maggots, I guess.
Collective grossness. All right. That's fantastic.
And also, Muxus is 5 goblins in a trench coat.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
So this works out. I also think that this is going to breathe new and interesting life into Maverick in Legacy, because suddenly your Green Sun Zeniths aren't just completely dead. to, those heavy creature removal decks like Miracles, and, your opponent just has a bunch of Swords to Plowshares, and then you have Green Sun Zenith, and you go get a Grist. What do? You can't really do anything to that. So I think that's pretty cool.
And if you +1 and you mill a Grist, you get to do it again because it is itself an insect in addition. Oh, I love it. It's so good. It's so silly and ridiculous. And like the idea that cards can like be other types while not on the battlefield, I think that's also really cool. Like if a creature could be a sorcery while it's not on the battlefield, I think that's super neat. I would love to see that space sort of played with. All right, let's move on here to our number 3, getting to the biggie bigs. Ruben, what's number 3?
Again, I love every Magic card. And so the fact that Modern Horizons called back every Magic card means every Magic card I love. This one, obviously, people are going nuts for because it is a callback / kind of direct print of another card that is already a huge card in Modern. Ignoble Hierarch is my number 3.
Good.
Ignoble Hierarch is a green mana for an 0/1. It's a goblin shaman. So we get to trigger double with our shaman doubler.
Yeah, our exalted triggers twice.
With exalted, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and it has tap : add black, green, or red to your mana pool. As opposed to Noble Hierarch, which is the Bant one, this one is the Jund one. And there's already a ton of lists that want to have access to something like this. Not only is it a goblin, it's a shaman, and there are decks that are running playsets of Ignoble and Noble Hierarch alongside each other.
Wow, the 8 Hierarch action. And I'm excited when they make the Naya one that taps for red, white, or green, which will be nice. And whatever nobling they'll be doing there. This card's also $110 in sketch foil, so that's exciting. I'm glad this is on your list because it wasn't on mine, and that I felt like in some ways it's a little like on the nose, but at the same time, it's a goblin shaman that's making mana and exalted. It's just as cool as Noble. In fact, it's damn near
very
cooler.
on the nose. It's very on the nose, but also they made it a goblin, so it gets to go in goblins,
right,
which they kind of want to be playable in Modern, as far as I can tell. It's just a cool.
It's just a super cool design. Absolutely. Aaron, what's number 3?
So my number 3 is a card that kind of snuck in under the radar. I think Judge Academy previewed this right as we were about to go live one night, and didn't really get a lot of attention, but it immediately went straight to Vintage and was good enough to be a replacement for Krovikin Horror. Go look up that one, kids. And partially because of this card, we saw a lot of Hollowvine decks do really well this past weekend. My number 3 is Master of Death. So Master of Death is 1 colorless, a blue, and a black. It's a zombie wizard with 3 power and 1 toughness. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 2. You're probably not ever going to have that happen. But what you're really after is the second part, which is at the beginning of your upkeep, if Master of Death is in your graveyard, you can pay 1 life and put it back in your hand. So when people think of Bazaar of Baghdad, they typically think of Dredge and Vintage, which is certainly a thing. But you can also just use Bazaar of Baghdad as a card drawing engine. And one of the ways that you do that is you make it so that the cards you're discarding, you're going to get back. Squee Goblin Nabob is probably the most popular one because you don't have to pay anything. And so it's free to be able to do that. We were also using Krovikin Horror for a while, but now we have Master of Death. And the reason why this is better is because those bizarre card advantage decks are usually running Force of Will. And sometimes it can be difficult to get that blue count going. And so you now have a black card that pitches to your Unmasks if you want to. And you also have a blue card that pitches to your Force of Negations and your Force of Wills. Or you can also pitch to either one of the Evoke creatures, which we might talk about. And so this card fills a lot of roles, and you don't mind paying the 1 life because you're probably going to outgrind your opponent. And so this is a really, really neat card that was good enough to just kind of go straight to the top of formats and hopefully stay there.
Yeah, this card is totally sweet, and like it does so many different little weird things. Lets you surveil, which puts cards in your graveyard, which is nice, as well as being so pitchable at the same time. And you're like, get out of my hand, let's go. I'll pay life ceiling.
It's fine as a 3/1 for 3. Obviously, that's not our dream scenario. Our dream scenario is we are discarding it and getting value out of it, and then eventually removing it to Icarid or something. Right? Because it's a blue and black card. And so Squee Goblin Nabob has been unique and the only card that did what it did for 20 years. And it was a staple of Survival of the Fittest decks and Bazaar of Baghdad value decks and things like that forever. but now we decided to upgrade it a little bit at the low cost of 1 life. I'll take it.
Man, you want to talk about an upgrade? You want to talk about a glow up? You want to talk about Wizards taking an idea and just knocking it into the stratosphere? My number 3, look, when, again, rumors just, they come across the wire all the time. Some of them are ridiculous. Some of them actually happen. And then there was this, like, hey, there's going to be a whole cycle of elementals that you just exile a card in your hand. And you're like, nah, they'll probably be trash. How far are they going to go? And then you notice that they're mythic. And you're like, oh, God. All right, well, that's where we're going. We're going to the big station. We're going to the variant artwork foil, $125 if you get to crack open a Solitude, ladies and gentlemen.
My number 5.
Solitude is 2 white and 3 generic mana for a 3/2 mythic elemental incarnation with flash and lifelink. And when it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power, and it has Evoke of exile a white card from your hand. This thing is bananas. I could not believe that they actually factually gave us Swords to Plowshares, and not just that, but the free kind. Yeah. Like, if there is a poster child for Splinter Twin can live now, Splinter Twin can live now.
Yeah. I mean, so this is basically going to be Path to Exile, 5, 6, 7, and 8 if you wanted to. The nice thing about this is you can cast it, of course. Lifelink and Flash are not bad things to have. Yeah. Death and Taxes decks are also likely to have either vials. So if you do want to knock the vial all the way up to 5 and just vial this in, you can do that too. It's not really... The thing about this card, I think, evaluating its usefulness is evaluating both sides of it. And, the fact that it has Flash is really strong. Some of these do not, or one of them does not. And so, yeah, I think this is fine. This is great. This is mythic, currently going for about $40 right now. I'd be very surprised if this didn't see play.
Yeah. It's nice that Wizards said, we're okay with the speed. We're not gonna ban everything fast. Instead, we're going to give you the stopgap solutions. We're going to give you the ways to control that. And more than that, we're going to make a whole cycle. And more than that, the best one's going to be white. Or arguably the best one's going to be white, particularly for Modern, which didn't have Swords to Plowshares. So you have this card, and oh, by the way, you get to play alongside things like Ephemerate and other ways to do cool things with creatures that you don't always get to do with just a spell. I think that it's an incredible design, and I'm super excited that this is... I feel like this is the kind of card that can be a staple backbone in the way that Wasteland is, in the way that Force of Will is, in the way that Force of Negation is for various formats.
I would note that it's like, and they mentioned this, they said, they work to kind of have reactive cards to, do something that your opponent's trying to do. Okay, well, let me disrupt that. Let me change that. Now, obviously, there's not all of them are like that, but a bunch of them are like, oops, by the way, let me stop what you're doing and interrupt that. And obviously this card's incredible for that.
3 of the 5 elemental incarnations in this cycle disrupt the Splinter Twin combo. So that's huge. I mean, that is the kind of thing that they want to be able to do.
Absolutely. So let's move on here to our number 2. I share my number 2 with a very special person.
That would be me. Yeah, so this was the evoke creature that I was the most excited about. This was the one that we first saw when the cycle was revealed to us. And so this was the one I kind of lost my mind over because, again, this is good enough to replace Unmask, which was a legacy and vintage staple. And so when your power level's so high, that you can go all the way to the top, I think that's really, really saying something. Our number 2 is Grief.
Grief is just a bananas magic card. This is the most expensive card in the set, not close. It is 2 black, 2 generic mana for a 3/2 mythic elemental incarnation with Menace. And when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, and you can evoke it by exiling a black card from your hand. That's just an incredible rate for the ability. I mean, it barely gets lower than exiling another card out of your hand. Like, pain and life is about it.
Yeah, so some other things to consider. This is a second creature spell. If you're playing any sort of Vengevine or Hogak deck, or if you're playing, Dredge, this can be that second creature for you. It also triggers your Bridge from Below. So if you have a hand that's just, a couple bridges in Grief, you just discard your bridges, Grief, and make some 2/2s. That's fine. It is also a creature, so it can't be Flusterstormed. It can't be Force of Negation. It really just has, do you have Force of Will? That's really all we're asking here. And so the things that deal with it are much narrower. It does allow you to play sort of, Cabal Therapy 5 and 6 and 7, or just replace Unmask altogether. It just opens up a lot of doors. And just when I first saw this, I freaked out and I was like, this replaces Unmask. Like, it also feeds your Icarids as well. It's just ridiculous, all the little nuances of this card, and the artwork's incredible as well.
Absolutely. The Svetlin Velinov did 8 pieces of artwork for Modern Horizons 2. He did the entire cycle of the Elemental Incarnation borderless versions.
Oh.
And they're all incredible. And they're all great cards. I mean, even the worst one, most people are saying Fury is the worst one. That's still
Pyrokinesis, right?
Pyrokinesis in Modern on a 3/3 double striker.
Yeah.
So if that's the worst we're doing okay.
Fury's
I'm sorry?
I was just say Fury may not be very good in Modern, but it was all over Vintage this weekend. Like, the kids, that and the Root Walla, that was all anyone wanted to be doing.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've been seeing Malakir Rebirth alongside of Grief. At least some rumblings of that to try to replicate the Ephemerate effect with Solitude. So yeah, I mean, and this one is the more proactive of the cycle. This is the most, if you're playing an aggressive strategy or a combo strategy, this is the one you want.
Right. This, like, they toned it down. I guess one of the ways they toned it is it has to target an opponent. You can't have yourself discarding something. Okay. The black card has to exile, so whatever. But getting this trigger, Ephemerate, blinking, rebirthing, whatever you got to do to keep putting this thing back in play and getting more and more cards as a 3/2 that's hard to block. Like, that leads to winning games. Like, it just does. And this was one of the big sexy mythics they showed us right up front for a reason. Got everyone hyped. Oh my God, the train rails are off, blah, blah, blah. All right, Ruben, what's number 2?
My number 2, again, I love every Magic card. This one I've cast a lot. I think I've cast this card almost, probably not the most of anyone. Close, though. I'm not sure how many people have cast more Imperial Recruiters than me. And the fact that Imperial Recruiter gets to come into Modern, where everyone gets to enjoy the love that is Imperial Recruiter. Originally from Portal 3 Kingdoms, it's 2 colorless and a red for a 1/1 human advisor. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less, reveal it, and put it in your hand. Then shuffle. It opens up a bunch of doors for Modern. I mean, we've seen how Recruiter of the Guard has kind of turned Death and Taxes into a little bit of a toolbox thing. I've been seeing red-white kind of prison decks that want to search up the Archon of Emeria and Raydane, the Worthy, and cards like that, and Magus of the Moons and stuff like that to be able to lock opponents out. It's just a good value card, and I love it. I'm so glad that the future of Magic and the kids... think of the children. The children get to play Imperial Recruiter.
I remember when this card was so expensive that you couldn't play Aloran and Legacy because you couldn't afford Imperial Recruiters. And so, but now it's like a $20, $30 card. Like, it's fine. Like, this is a really good example of the power of reprints to, take a card that was over $100, maybe even a couple $100, and just make it so accessible, even beyond Aloran, of course, giving red an ability like this. They gave us Recruiter of the Guard in white, but it's not really the same. And so I think this is beautiful. Like, Wizards, keep doing this. Like, just find random rares like Grim Tutor in this and just reprint the crap out of them.
I mean, this is this has that very scary text of finding power 2 or less, not mana value these days. Okay. So not mana value 2 or less. No, power 2 or less. That's anything that's a 0/0. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000,000 mana, as long as that power is below. Between this and Revelark really taught Magic design that you got to be really careful when you talk about the power and not the mana value, because things can get crazy.
And just like Recruiter of the Guard going to get Flicker Wisp and whatever, this could go get Deceiver Exarch. This can go get any wall. This can go get whatever it is that you're trying to do with your deck. It can be a value. It can be a prison. It can be a combo card. It's all over the place, and it's just a very good card. And also, you pod players out there, whatever pod form is taking place these days.
This one right here.
Whether it's Neoform or whatever it is you're doing with your time, this can replace or be something to sacrifice to go get something else, which I love.
Very, very nice. All right, so let's move on here to our number one. Goodness gracious. Now, before we get to one that shares with me, someone gets to talk about a very long card name that is my number 10. Who is that?
So I loved this card from the minute I saw it. I loved everything about it. I had no idea that it was actually good. Like, I would say one of the biggest success stories to come out of this set is my number one. It is basically Hogak 2.0 minus the Hogak. This has made Feasting Troll King a thing. Feasting Troll King is the new Hogak, and it's because of this card. I've seen all sorts of variants of this, played with Hollow One, played with Bartered Cow or Battered Cow. Just the most ridiculous cards are allowing this card to exist, and this card is helping them exist, and I think it's beautiful. My number one is Asmora Namartica Diced Kuldakar. So Asmora Namartica Diced Kuldakar is no mana cost, famously. She's a legendary creature, human wizard with 3 power and 3 toughness. If you've discarded a card this turn, you can pay a hybrid red or black mana to cast the spell. When Asmora Namartica Diced Kuldakar enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card named the Underworld Cookbook, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle, and you sacrifice 2 foods to have a creature deal 6 damage to itself. That ability happens often. Like, I've been watching people stream this deck, and that's not hard to do. And so this card is a really powerful engine. The Cookbook happens to be one of the best discard outlets in Modern right now. The fact that it goes to look for it is ridiculous. She also has a great storyline. She's been in flavor text going all the way back to Alpha. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the official canon of this is that she summoned a Lord of the Pit named Vincent, ran out of food to feed Vincent, so she made a pact with him that she would cook for him in hell for 7 years and 7 nights. At the end of her tenure, Vincent offered her full-time employment, to which she replied she wanted to get out of Dodge. So Vincent asked her to make a recipe book before she goes, called the Underworld Cookbook. Apparently 20 copies were made, which only her and her mother purchased. And she was so mad that nobody bought it that she ordered her imps to destroy the cookbook. They did not, of course, and then everybody that she mentioned in the cookbook decided to come after her. And this is canon. Like, this is the most ridiculous story I've ever heard.
Sounds
but it's
like
amazing.
a D&D campaign.
It does.
Like a
And you look
campaign.
at the art, and you look at all of the Easter eggs here. You look at the scorpion souffles that she's making. You look at kind of like the placenta in hell of like the souls and the shades. I mean, it's just an incredible card. The imps like holding up the ingredients for her. I mean, who would have thought that this card was actually good in addition to being flavorful? No pun intended.
I mean, and
It's a 3 mana 1/1. It's not that hard to discard a card.
You mean a 1 mana 3/3?
1 mana 3/3.
1 mana 3/3.
That's backwards. 1 mana 3/3. That's powerful. It's not that hard to discard a card. Even if it's not the Underworld Cookbook, we've got a couple of other ways to do it. Insolent Neonate, I think, is one of the ones I'm seeing. It's great. I love it. I think it's hilarious that people are gonna have to write it on deck lists.
Yeah, people are going to have to be like, well, how does that, a Mardica dice? A what? And, Asmoran,
Alphabet soup.
Alphabet soup. Like, they got around saying command zone on this card, which was brilliant. I mean, this is one of those things that, like, Ari Lax was right. That stupid cow would do something stupid before it was over.
Free value.
You can't just get wizards. How many times have we been here? You give something for free and it breaks later all the time. That stupid cow. We knew it. It was coming and going.
So I have heard a different pronunciation of this name as opposed to Asmarana Mardica Diced in a Kuldakar.
Okay.
Asmarana Mardica Dastinaculidakar. Is another pronunciation I'd heard.
Right. I can't relearn it at this point. It's just Asmoran Mardica Diced in a Kuldakar.
Everything I've heard from like a Wizards employee has been the previous way.
With the cool?
Yes.
That came from Ethan Fleischer. So
Right.
The Dastinaculidakar version I had heard from like an old school player who has no connection to Wizards. I'm sure there's no official pronunciation.
Oh yeah, potato.
One hopes.
Hogak.
You say Asmarana Mardica Diced in a Kuldakar. I say Asmarana Mardica and that Diced in Aculadakar. I'm done.
Just think of all the times Evan had to practice that in the mirror the night of the live show.
Just think of poor Carrie, who had to sit across from me over there across in the corner of the room, and how we were just going, Asmoran Mardica Diced. Because I'm whispering it like all day. It's like, don't Asmoran Mardica
Carrie's probably calling up her family like, he's speaking in tongues.
He's calling them demons. They's coming to get us. All right, let's move on to number 1 for Ruben and I, as we have chosen the same crazy card. This thing, I didn't believe. Like I didn't. They were like, it's
I was going to
pre-ordering.
say, this could have been my number 1 even before I saw the weekend results.
It's true. Well, for what it's worth, I have not seen the weekend results. What I know is that this card was bananas from the moment that I had seen it, and I loved it. And I was like, this thing is $80? Are you serious? And somehow it's pre-selling for it, and this card is bananas. And Ruben, tell us about Ragavan Nimble Pilfer.
So, more pronunciation guide for you. Ragavan.
Yep.
Ragavan.
Don't let Shivam hear you.
Don't let Shivam hear you. Ragavan Nimble Pilfer is a 1 red mana, 2/1.
Card is insane.
That's 1 red mana for a 2/1. It's a legendary creature, Monkey Pirate. I would love this card if it was just legendary creature, Monkey Pirate. That would be the end. I'd be happy and we could all go home. But we're not done. When Ragavan Nimble Pilfer deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card.
God.
And it has dash of a
Jesus.
colorless and a red. You may cast this card for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste, and it's returned from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step.
So,
Wow.
the results you were saying?
This card is all over Legacy. It's
Good.
a 4 of. This is like the Delver card now.
Yep.
It's this, the Dragon 1-drop, and Delver in blue-red Delver.
People made fun of me. Remember this.
Crazy.
People made fun of me. I said, this is the best 1-drop of all time. And they're like, actually, Delver is still a group. Dude, this card is insane. This card is ridiculous. It's drawing you cards. It's making you mana. It's making you mana to play the cards that it's getting you. That is absolutely ridiculous. And it's only 1 mana. I mean, this is as pushed as I think. Can you think of a 1 mana creature that does anywhere remotely close to how much all of this does?
I mean, the only thing that comes close is Dragon Rage Channeler, which is also in this set.
It's also
and is
a-
also a 4 of in that new Delver deck.
Nice.
So you're getting so much for 1 red mana
Yes.
that even if they're killing it, you're getting value because you only invested 1 mana. That's why when you have Legacy, right, you have threats that cost 1 and 2, because once you're paying 3 mana, you're just trading it for 1 and 2 mana because all of the removal is so good.
Mhm.
It's the same now with Modern. This will be insane in Modern, and much less if it gets to attack, and you get to get a treasure token, and you get to effectively draw a card.
Right.
It's crazy, absolutely insane.
You basically get like a temporary land, the Lotus Petal thing. Again, that doesn't go away. And if you don't cast the card, okay, that's fine. But, if they're killing it, then you're probably killing it.
You're coming up on mana. That's why Vindicate, which is in this set, isn't going to see any play because anything you're vindicating costs less than Vindicate.
It's true.
It's like it's like fixing a toaster with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, the customs for the extended art foil $185. I was wrong. Forgive me earlier. This is the most expensive card in the set beyond grief.
Sure.
This card is bananas.
I'm not shocked because you need 4 of for every format.
Yeah.
Oh my god, 88 tickets. Oh my god, this card is insane. So yeah,
At least the good news is my favorite part of this is that the most expensive, the best card, the top tier is a Jackal Pup.
Yep, there's a 1 red, 2/1 that does
Everything
really,
old
really good
becomes
stuff.
new again.
That's right.
And that's how Magic works, ladies and gentlemen. That was our top 10 Modern Horizons 2 cards. You'll see them on screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10. And we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
What a fun, stupid, goofy set.
What an over-the-top, from the top rope.
Yeah. Everything's
Love it.
And it's
ridiculous.
still
Everything's
early.
absurd.
Everything's a
It's still early.
callback. Everything's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, move to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and AltarSleeves.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.